At this point, Mo Yu's complexion had already improved slightly, and the gray light around him was no longer flickering, but instead of re-entering the fray, he was observing Han Li and Gong Shuju from the sidelines with an intrigued look on his face. That's a myriad law bead? I didn't think that a mere immortal envoy would have so many fine treasures in his possession. It would almost be a pity to destroy this bead. Worm 3 was also watching Han Li and Gong Shuju, and it was unclear what she was thinking. As for Luo Qinghai and the others, they were all displaying different reactions to Han Li's abrupt interception. Han Li took a glance at Mo Yu and Worm 3, and his brows furrowed slightly as he made a hand seal in preparation to lash out with his azure bamboo cloudswarm swords again. Right at this moment, a burst of white light suddenly flashed over Gong Shuju's body, and a burst of tremendous law power fluctuations erupted out of the ball of white light to strike the golden ripples, which immediately began to flicker erratically, while the time law powers within them were thrown into a state of disarray. A surprised look appeared on Han Li's face upon seeing this. With so many time Dao runes on his mantra-treasured axis, it was actually already far more powerful than his time spirit domain, albeit with a much more limited range. And this was the first time that someone had been able to disrupt it to this extent. As expected, a high zenith stage Jade Immortal was not to be underestimated. Despite this, Han Li remained completely unfazed as he made a rapid string of hand seals, and his mantra, treasured axis, began to revolve even faster, while the time Dao runes on its surface released a burst of radiant golden light, injecting bursts of time law powers into the surrounding golden ripples to stabilize them. However, before the disruption could be completely quelled, another burst of tremendous law power fluctuations erupted out of the ball of white light to strike the golden ripples, and this time, they began to flicker and tremble even more erratically than before. Han Li was doing everything in his power to stabilize the golden ripples, but the law power fluctuations surging out of the ball of white light were relentless, and each wave was more powerful than the previous one. Before long, the golden ripples were beginning to fall apart. Mo Yu's brows furrowed slightly upon seeing this, and he remarked, "Looks like even with mastery over one of the 3 paramount laws, it's too much to ask for a golden immortal to take down a jade immortal." He then proceeded to step forward, but Worm 3 stopped him as she interjected, "Don't force yourself, Mo Yu. Allow me?" "Well, I'm certainly more than happy to sit back and watch," Mo Yu replied in a lackadaisical voice. Right at this moment, Luo Qinghai suddenly swept a sleeve through the air to summon a tall blue stone plaque that was riddled with blue patterns and giving off a peculiar aura. He then pressed both hands against the stone plaque, and everyone around him immediately followed suit. Even Nan Kiming had flown over to his side, and his face was as pale as a sheet, but he pressed his palms against the stone plaque as well. A burst of translucent blue light with countless runes flashing within it erupted out of the stone plaque, then instantly enveloped all of them before flying away at an incredible speed. Vanishing into the distance in the blink of an eye, the Blaze Dragon Dao Lord's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and he immediately opened his mouth to release several balls of crimson light, which encompassed his entire body before also carrying him away into the distance in a flash. Taoist Hu Yan and Yun Ni were also struck by the urge to retreat upon seeing this, but they were hesitant to leave Han Li behind. "Get out of here, fellow Taoist Hu Yan. I did that gray immortal a favor by bringing him out of that underground palace, so he has no reason to target me. There's no telling what could happen from here, and the longer you stay, the more danger you'll be in," Han Li urged through voice transmission. Taoist Hu Yan and Yun Ni exchanged a hesitant glance with one another upon hearing this. Right at this moment, Mo Yu suddenly began to approach the two of them as he complained, "Why are all of you so scared of me? I'm a good person." His words of reassurance achieved the completely opposite effect, and Taoist Hu Yan and Yun Ni immediately flew away in the distance at the sight of the approaching Mo Yu. How sad. "I'm the savior here, yet I'm being treated like a villain." Mo Yu sighed with a shake of his head, and he made no attempt to pursue Taoist Hu Yan and Yun Ni as he turned his gaze back to Han Li. Right at this moment, Worm 3 abruptly appeared on the edge of the golden ripples, then raised both hands to release two streaks of yellow light, within which were a pair of long yellow needles. The pair of needles were giving off formidable Earth Law power fluctuations as they shot forth toward Gongshuju, but they were also immediately stopped cold in their tracks upon flying into the golden ripples. "What are you doing, fellow Taoist Li?" Worm 3 asked as she turned to Han Li with furrowed brows. Han Li could only give a wry smile in response. Prior to mastering the laws of time, the golden ripples released by his mantra, Treasured Axis, hadn't been all that formidable, and he had been able to control them back then so that they didn't slow down his allies and their attacks. However, now that he had reached the golden immortal stage and made significant strides in his mastery over the laws of time, his mantra Treasured Axis had become countless times more powerful, but it had also become unwieldy and uncontrollable. Worm 3 seemed to have realized what the problem was upon seeing Han Li's expression, and her brows furrowed even tighter. If Han Li couldn't control these golden ripples, then there was no way for her to help him. Han Li took a deep breath as he summoned his time spirit domain to help him stabilize the golden ripples. But his efforts were proving to be largely futile. The golden ripples were becoming thinner and thinner, and at this rate, they weren't going to last much longer. The restrictive effect that the mantra Treasured Axis had on Shui Ying was also significantly diminished, and a burst of law power fluctuations erupted out of her body as well to fight back against the golden ripples. Han Li's brows furrowed slightly upon seeing this, and he quickly made a hand seal upon which the area encompassed within the golden ripples instantly shrank down to a radius of no more than 1,000 feet, thereby releasing Shui Ying. Shui Ying was ecstatic to have been freed, but she then took a fearful glance at Han Li and Worm 3 before immediately fleeing the scene, making no further attempt to assist Gongshuju. A cold look appeared on Worm 3's face upon seeing this, and she immediately pointed a finger in Shui Ying's direction. At this point, her pair of yellow needles had also been freed, and they immediately shot forth toward Shui Ying at an incredible speed. As for Shui Ying, her speed was hampered by Han Li's time spirit domain, so the yellow needles were able to catch up to her in an instant. Immediately thereafter, countless yellow runes surged out of the pair of needles, forming a pair of large yellow nets that surrounded Shui Ying from all directions. Both nets were giving off tremendous law power fluctuations, and they quickly ensnared Shui Ying before shrinking down to form a yellow ball in the blink of an eye. A pleased look appeared in Worm 3's eyes upon seeing this, following which she turned her gaze back to Han Li with a contemplative expression. In terms of overall power, Shui Ying wasn't only slightly inferior to her, so it shouldn't have been anywhere near this easy for Worm 3 to capture her. Yet, here in this time spirit domain, Shui Ying had been caught in an instant. However, right at this moment, the yellow ball began to bulge violently, swelling to several times its original size, and many small holes began to appear on its surface. Beams of radiant white light were bursting through these holes, and they erupted forth in all directions before converging to a single spot to reform Shui Ying's body. However, in the wake of that brief ordeal, her face was looking a little pale, and as soon as she broke free from the yellow ball, she immediately continued to flee the scene even faster than before, reaching the edge of Han Li's time spirit domain in the blink of an eye. Worm 3's expression darkened slightly as she gave a cold harumph, and a burst of dark red light instantly erupted out of her body before expanding outward rapidly to form a dark red spirit domain in the blink of an eye, encompassing the fleeing Shui Ying within. Countless bursts of dark red light were surging throughout the spirit domain, significantly slowing down the streak of white light around Shui Ying, while also constantly whittling away at it. Right at this moment, the Worm 3's dark red spirit domain and Han Li's golden spirit domain suddenly overlapped with one another, and both spirit domains abruptly lit up significantly, as if they were resonating with one another. The two spirit domains then began to buzz and tremble, and a series of golden flowers appeared in the sky before drifting down from above. Not only had Han Li's spirit domain brightened significantly, the same had happened to his golden ripples as well, and they were instantly stabilized, trapping Gongshuju firmly within once again. With both the Time Spirit Domain and the Dark Red Spirit Domain becoming several times brighter, Shui Ying was also stopped cold in her tracks, unable to move any further. Both Han Li and Worm 3 exchanged a bewildered glance upon seeing this, while a hint of surprise appeared in Mo Yu's eyes as well. Han Li and Worm 3 had no idea what was happening here. But both of them knew that this wasn't the time to ponder such matters, so they immediately returned their attention to the battle at hand. Worm 3 made a hand seal, and the yellow ball exploded, transforming into a pair of long, yellow needles once again. Radiant yellow light erupted out of the pair of needles, and they vanished without a trace, then appeared beside Shui Ying an instant later before sweeping directly through her. Her body was instantly severed into several pieces, and blood was sent splattering in all directions. Han Li paid no heed to what was happening on that end as he continued to stare intently at Gongshuju. Trapped inside Worm 3's dark red spirit domain, the ball of white light around Gongshuju had dimmed significantly, and this was naturally quite an encouraging sight for Han Li, as a burst of radiant purplish golden light erupted out of his body. At the same time, several balls of light of different colors flew out of his body as well, then transformed into a series of different true spirit projections. These projections revolved around Han Li momentarily before fusing back into his body, and he immediately began to swell drastically in stature. A layer of purplish golden scales appeared over his body, and in the blink of an eye, he had transformed into a purplish golden giant that was over 1,000 feet tall. The muscles on his shoulders and beneath his ribs squirmed in a rather grotesque fashion, following which 2 heads and 4 arms sprang out of his body. Han Li knew that it was time to pull out all the stops, and he had unleashed his holy nirvana physique.